Hello everyone. Welcome to another edition of TCS News. I'm Danny.
And I'm Khori.
There's been a lot of new events both around the world and in the school, so let's jump right in. Recently, there have been a series of historical protests in the country of Nepal, located in the Himalayas, a region in southern Asia. The protests have been quite severe and have escalated very quickly over the past few weeks. Some protesters have become violent and have begun to damage many governmental buildings. According to Reuters, over 2,000 people were injured and 72 people died during the protests. Because of the severity of this situation, it's natural to ask, why did the protests begin and what exactly are they protesting for? Khori, could you enlighten us?
Yes, I can. There are multiple reasons for the protests, such as the heavy economic strain in the country, in addition to the sweeping corruption in the Nepalese government. The catalyst behind the newfound action is mostly caused by the sweeping social media ban, which many individuals in Gen Z consider to be censorship. Danny, could you give a bit more detail on the social media situation?
Sure. In 2023, the Nepalese government first began its bid to introduce regulations on various social media platforms under Prime Minister KP Sharma Ali. The government required these platforms to register with the government to be used by citizens. Because many companies, including Facebook, X, TikTok, YouTube, and WhatsApp, did not register, the government banned 26 social media platforms. On September 9, 2025, the government lifted the bans on all 26 platforms as a result of the rampant protests.
On the economic side, the youth of Nepal have felt that there isn't much opportunity in the job market. According to the World Bank, the unemployment rate for youth aged 15 to 24 was 20.8% in 2024. Nepal is also heavily dependent on remittances, which are sums of money sent home by Nepalese people working abroad. A third of Nepal's entire GDP is from remittances, which have been steadily increasing. A recent social media trend has also highlighted the nepotism and corruption in the government, where the children of politicians showcase a lavish lifestyle. This highlights a contrast showing the lack of opportunities for the common folk compared to these proclaimed Nepo kids.
The protests began on September 8th and grew rapidly. A day after they began, the protesters made their way to the capital of Nepal, Kathmandu. There, they set fire to the Supreme Court, Parliament, and other governmental buildings. The protests toppled the government and have caused the resignation of the former Prime Minister, Sharma Ali. The police have been trying to subdue the protesters through various methods. They've used live ammunition, water cannons, and tear gas against the demonstrators. The Nepalese government sent the army to Kathmandu in an attempt to control the situation. Additionally, the country's main airport was shut down because of the protests. Kathmandu Post newspaper company had its server shut down too, after its building was set ablaze.
Historically, events like this aren't new for Nepal. With a population of 30 million people, they've transitioned from more than a dozen different governments since the dissolution of their monarchy in 2008. The monarchy lasted for 239 years and ended with a bang, following a decade-long civil war. Secretary General of the UN, Antonio Guterres, called for a thorough investigation and restraint to prevent the escalation of more violence. Additionally, the U.S. State Department strongly urged all U.S. citizens in Nepal to shelter in place and avoid travel.
There have been many resignations among political officials due to the protests. Prime Minister Ali, Home Minister Ramesh Lekak, and the Minister of Agriculture, Water, and Health have resigned each day after the protests. The Nepali government has made attempts to appeal to the Gen Z-led protesters to talk and resolve the conflict. Nepali President Ramchandra Paudel asked the demonstrators to cooperate for a peaceful resolution.
Usually, once the Prime Minister resigns, the President will call the Parliament to organize a new government. But since there currently is no majority party, the Parliament is forming an interim government with Gen Z leaders. Sushila Karki has been appointed as the country's new interim Prime Minister, sworn in office by President Ramchandra on September 12th. She is 73 years old and is the country's first female prime minister. She became the first female Supreme Court justice in 2016 as well. In her first public address, she says, "I did not come to this position because I had sought it, but because there were voices from the streets demanding that Sushila Karki should be given the responsibility."
I personally think that the situation in Nepal is very inspiring. It's great to see that the youth in the country are coming together to take action against a government that they think is unjust to make change. As someone in Gen Z myself, I think it's important for youth around the world to see that we have the power to change the world. Looking at the current predicament in the United States, it's not unlikely that the youth in this country might have to stand up to take leadership roles in the midst of conflict. It's unfortunate that many people were injured and lost their lives, but I think that this shift is positive in the historical context. What do you think about the situation, Khori?
I couldn't agree with you more, Danny. I find it so fascinating that the youth in Nepal dare to stand up for themselves against their government. I hope that the youth in our country, if the youth in our country have to stand up to leadership in the future, they can look at the story and feel inspired.
Now, let's get into some TCS news. On Thursday, we were able to go to the Lyric. Khori, can you tell us what we were doing?
Of course, Danny. The class started off with a warm-up. Ethan, Hector, and Ruth refreshed our memories on the warm-up that was created last year. The warm-up includes intense stretching. After this, we did an icebreaker. We were handed a marker and we had to act like the marker was a different prop. For example, I acted like the marker was a cane.
Afterwards, we were all given a card. On this card, we had to write one word to describe ourselves, one word that others would describe us as, and finally, one word that we aspire to be. Each of us had a partner and we all traded cards. Once we received the card, we then had to choose one and act it out.
Each of us got to choose something that we wanted to do in the future for class. After this, we played an interesting game called Poisonous Dark Frog. For those who don't know, Poisonous Dark Frog is a game where players sit in a circle and one person is chosen to be the frog. The frog eliminates other players by making eye contact and by sticking their tongue out. This causes the victim to die. A chosen detective then tries to identify the frog within a certain number of guesses.
You know, Khori, I wish we had more information about our new teacher for the Lyric.
Well, Danny, you're in for a treat. Today's TCS Spotlight is Mitch Harris. Mitch Harris is our new teacher for the Lyric. He grew up in a predominantly white neighborhood in Texas. He wasn't really exposed to many different forms of art. However, the forms of art he was exposed to were in his church. That includes the church choir, plays the church held, etc. During the interview, Mr. Mitch told us that he often wished for a more diverse background at an earlier age.
However, during high school, he started to expand his circle. He joined a theater club in high school, which changed his view on art completely. He later went on to go to St. Edward's University, where he learned about many programs, including the Lyric. He knew that he wanted to work with art, and he wanted to help children find their passion for art just like he did.
Mr. Mitch is currently in many professions. Not only is he working with the Lyric, but Mr. Mitch is a resident teaching artist fellow with Baltimore Arts Integration Project. Mr. Mitch has also published in newspapers, magazines, literacy journals, and creative writing anthologies.
He's not only a writer, but he's also an educator, and he's also a performer. He has performed Shakespeare on stage, commercial films on camera, voiceovers for audiobooks, new work debuts at independent theaters, children's shows on cafetorium stages, and everything in between. Oscar Wilde once said that theater was the most immediate way in which a human being could share with another sense of what it is to be a human being. And Mitch couldn't agree more.
I just wanted to say that Mitch Harris is truly a creative person and a great educator. From the first class, I felt as though I really got to learn about my classmates and him a lot more. He created a safe space for all of us to truly express ourselves. I can't wait for our next visit with the Lyric. Danny, how do you feel about the first class with the Lyric?
I thought it was really fun and well orchestrated. I think he made us get to know each other and got to know us in a really smart way during the Post-it note activity. I also enjoyed the game we played at the end. It was really fun and I can't wait for more theater seminars. Now, on Thursday, the school got an exciting visit from Miss Michelle White. Khori, can you tell us who Miss Michelle White is?
Of course, Danny. Miss Michelle White is the Assistant Dean for Early College and Access Programs at Baltimore City Community College. Miss Michelle has been a beneficial asset in bringing in professors for 11th and 12th graders. She was also a former principal at Western High School, which enhances her desire to work with young people.
She stopped in to meet the new students and to check the progress of former students in their college courses.
Thank you so much, Miss Michelle White, for checking in. The school can't wait to see you again. On Friday, we were able to have a conversation with John Tyler. Danny, can you tell us a little bit about who John Tyler is?
Yes, John Tyler is the CCO of Love Groove Fest. He also writes music for some of your favorite shows and commercials, like Starstruck and the sound design for the Orioles game. He wrote the music for the new Ravens commercial. I really suggest all the Ravens fans check it out. Love Groove Fest is located in Robert C. Marshall Park, located on Pennsylvania Avenue in Baltimore. This location is significant as it's within the Black Arts District, a historic area dedicated to uplifting Black artists and culture.
Love Fest includes a variety of different music and artists. Some of the music included in this exciting festival is jazz, rock, and hip-hop. Some of the artists that have performed in this festival include Muso Fires, Serpent with the Feet, Kennedy Ryan, John Tyler, Chogi, and more. We really recommend you all check these cool artists out.
The festival also includes different art walls and different farm animals. Unfortunately, the festival has already passed, but if you weren't there will be many cool festivals coming soon. Khori, did John have a team that helped him with this festival?
Yes, Danny. During the conversation, John mentioned that he got many people on his team from word of mouth. He made a note that good resumes on paper are good, but also good vibes in person, and your peers being able to say good things about you is important as well. To run such a cool festival and have many other successful projects, I'm sure he would have to go through some challenges, right?
Of course. In middle school, John Tyler struggled with depression. He often spent his free time alone, and he felt as though he couldn't talk to his parents about what he was going through. By the end, he got the idea to start a festival in high school. He felt as though he didn't have support. He mentioned that the only key supporters were his mom and grandma.
During high school, he started developing more interest in music. He started his very own company at only 17 years old. As time went on, he was in demand. He collaborated with many creators and got his name out there. However, during 2023, he struggled with his mental health and resorted to doing psychedelics. During the conversation, he mentioned that his dad also struggled from relying on alcohol. Over time, he collected a lot of debt. He stressed the importance of relying or not relying on a substance or person with your mental health. However, all the challenges he faced, he is currently 2 years sober and is mentally thriving. He is currently not in debt anymore because of, and I quote, grinding and getting that work done. So he took different musical gigs to get himself out of debt.
During the conversation, John Tyler gave us tons of advice. The piece of advice that really stuck with me was when he said to be easy on yourself. He told us that many artists are too hard on themselves and don't give themselves enough grace to get their career off the ground.
Yes, Danny, I remember that. He also said that many artists struggle with their mental health and don't give themselves a second to pause. He used the famous artist SZA, for example.
Khori, did any advice stick with you?
Of course. A piece of advice that stuck with me was when John Tyler spoke about controlling your body and mind. He recommended that we meditate. And he said, when meditating, think of a body part that usually wouldn't come to mind. I think that will really help me when I'm feeling stressed.
I was a big fan of the conversation. I thought that Mr. John Tyler was a very interesting person. I enjoyed listening to his music that he presented for us for the Ravens commercial, and the part that I got the most from during the conversation was the part about mental health. It was especially prevalent for me personally, and I'm greatly appreciative of him being willing to open up to us about it. I thought the strength that he showed for that time of his life was something both inspirational and real. As someone who isn't an avid listener of music, I learned a lot.
I agree. I thought this conversation was truly amazing. I learned so much about John Tyler and how perseverance is so effective. So thank you so much, John, for coming in. We hope to see you again.
Now, on Monday, we had an amazingly insightful conversation with Mr. Marc Steiner about the conflict occurring in the Middle East, specifically Israel and Palestine. Mr. Marc told us his story about how his perspective on the situation has evolved over the years and how he is currently an anti-Zionist. Many events in his rich life have shaped him to understand the conflict in a complex and empathetic way. Marc Steiner grew up Jewish, so the state of Israel had been a part of his life since birth. He spoke about his grandparents from Warsaw, Poland, who faced unimaginable cruelty for being Jewish. He spoke about the cruelty inflicted upon his family due to anti-Semitism. While his grandma was in Warsaw, she was fleeing from Cossacks with her sister, and they brutally decapitated her sister right in front of her. All of this is to say that Marc Steiner is no stranger to anti-Semitism, and he had a passion for civil rights from a very young age.
Marc Steiner says one of the first instances in which he became aware of racism and injustice was when he was questioned about being around Black Boy Scouts when he was a kid. A younger boy asked him why he was hanging around all those N-words. Later, when he was 11 years old, he went to his first picket line with his mother at Mendamen. He has done many things in pursuit of justice, including creating fake IDs and passports to help people escape the Vietnam War, and being one of the freedom riders during the Civil Rights Movement. When he heard Israel was attacked in 1967, his first instinct was to enlist in the Israel army to defend Israel. Early in his life, Marc Steiner was a staunch Zionist, but all that changed once he started to learn more.
He began to have talks with leftist Jewish people and Palestinians. Afterwards, he became an advocate for the end of the occupation in the West Bank and Gaza. One of the biggest issues that he grapples with about the conflict is the dissonance between the idea that Jewish people were once oppressed, but have morphed into oppressors of the Palestinian people. On Real News Network, he does a series called Not in Our Name, where he and others tackle the historical contradiction. He elaborated a bit more about that, saying 70% of all of the white freedom riders in the South were Jews and were pivotal during the Civil Rights Movement too. At the same time, there were also Jewish slumlords who did a lot of damage to black communities in Baltimore during that time. All of this is to say that it's a very nuanced issue, but a human issue, that Jewish people could be victims of ethnic cleansing, only for the state of Israel to be perpetrators of the same crime.
Marc Steiner also noted that the destruction of the Palestinian land and people is self-destructive because of the very deep anti-Semitism across the world. This gives ignorant people the opportunity to misunderstand the situation and redirect their animosity towards Jewish people as a whole. The support of Israel is also deep-seated and has many complexities woven into it internationally. He described the United States and Israel as being neo-fascist governments, and they are working together. The United States is Israel's largest funder, with $310 billion sent in 2025 in foreign aid. Israel has a massive support base in the United States by evangelical Christians. This is because of the belief that Jesus' second coming will take place in Israel.
The eschatological belief comes from the revelation in the Bible, so the right wing tends to dominate a lot of the conversation about the conflict. My opinion is that Christianity often promotes peace and love, and the irony of it all is that Jesus was a Palestinian. I don't understand how it could be considered Christian for 65,000 civilians to be slaughtered as non-combatants in the conflict that they didn't start. The civilian death rate is over 83%, and I honestly think the situation is quite sickening. It greatly puzzles me how someone can justify that and reduce thousands of innocent human lives to be worthless.
I think it's important that you say that, Danny, because Marc Steiner said that it was pivotal not to give up hope. He said that if people come together, they can make change. Many young Jews are denouncing the actions of Israel, and many people around the world are fighting for a two-state solution.
I agree. I think that's very insightful and inspirational. I thought this conversation was really amazing, and a lot of historical knowledge was imparted to me. I got to know it in a more emotional way rather than the intellectual lens through which I usually see tragedy in life. On that note, Hegel, a German philosopher, says that history is a movement to absolute spirit and freedom. I think it may be important to see this conflict in that way, but what do you think, Khori?
I couldn't agree with you more, Danny. During the conversation, I remember Mingo saying that people become more and more desensitized to this conflict. Having Mr. Marc really showed me not only the background of this horrible war, but the tragedy this war has brought. Now, on a lighter note, on Tuesday, we had an exciting conversation with the famous photographer, Nicholas Rudolph. Mr. Rudolph currently owns his own studio and with his husband. He is really successful in his photography career, owning a website called Rudy and Rich. On this website, you can book photography for weddings, birthdays, etc. Mr. Rudolph's husband is also a big inspiration to him. Mr. Rudolph's husband not only did photography for their studio, but also has done it for the school system and the mall for over 10 years.
During the conversation, we were able to talk about a piece of equipment Mr. Rudolph was using. This includes a reflector. For those who don't know, you can use a reflector to redirect light to a subject or scene. However, it doesn't create light. Rather, it redirects light that is already there.
While showing us a reflector, Mr. Rudolph showed us how reflectors help with the contrast of skin. Darker skin tones usually go with the color gold to brighten up the photo, while people with lighter skin tones use silver to depict light from the subject. Mingo, Jason, and Kennedy bravely went up to prove the statement.
Mr. Rudolph mentioned that composition is also important. When we're looking at men, they depict a C shape, and women typically depict an S shape. Mr. Rudolph mentioned that poses are important. He told us that it gives the photo more contrast and a greater feel.
Mr. Rudolph also gives us tons of advice during this conversation. He told us if we develop a stronger interest in photography and wish to start a career in this field, we should find a voice, find subjects, and find people. So for example, if I'm interested in photography and I like taking pictures of people, I would use my voice to find people to take pictures of. I should also use my voice to get my name out there.
He also told us that if you are trying to learn photography without a degree, he said it was very powerful. Because not everyone can afford to go to college and many people don't know photography is out there. So if you're interested in photography, Mr. Rudolph recommends joining the PPA, which is Professional Photographers of America. Not only do they teach courses about photography, they are also a non-profit organization that donates equipment to students. Check it out.
Mr. Rudolph currently is having no trouble with his photography business, but that's all through perseverance. He started off using a Sony camera and using Photoshop, and sometimes certain bookings like weddings made him extremely tired, but his perseverance keeps him going. He mentioned that when talking to a customer, even when you're having trouble, you should talk to them. Realize the details that the customer wants in their photo, and get good lighting and angles. I truly learned so much from this conversation, not just about photography, but also how important it is that I personally persevere. Danny, what did you get out of this conversation?
I enjoyed the conversation a lot. I think it was fun to learn more about the technical side of photography and how much skill is needed for it. The demonstration also allowed me to think of it in a more scientific way, with the reflection and accommodation for darker skin tones. It's obvious, but it really is just optics. I learned a lot, and I hope to see him back someday. Now, we would like to thank everyone for providing lunches this week.
Thank you so much, Ms. Sharia, Madison's mom, for the salad, lunch meat, sandwiches, and fresh fruit on Wednesday. They were really tasty, and we appreciate the time and effort you put into this meal.
Much appreciation to the Lyric for the Chick-fil-A nuggets, chips, and fruit cups on Thursday. You guys always provide great lunches, and I had a lot of fun during the seminar.
Thank you so much, Mr. John, Mingo's dad, for the lasagna, cake pops on Friday. The lasagna was flavorful, and the cake pops were delicious too.
Thank you so much, Miss Lisa, Jason's mom, for the egg salad, chicken salad, salami, cheese, and rolls on Monday. The sandwiches were great, and the ingredients were fresh.
Thank you so much, Miss Ruth, Jordan's sponsor, for the beef stew, mashed potatoes, and broccoli on Tuesday. The food was amazing, and we appreciate your donation to the school.
That wraps up this broadcast. I hope you all enjoyed watching.
Make sure you tune in to next week's edition to learn more. We're grateful for your time.
Goodbye.
Bye.